Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know. Like a torta with a bad habit. Vaya, vaya, vaya. Orale, in a menudo style in direct fashion. Before we get into the content of the day, let's hit that like and subscribe button. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the dope direction of the dope content that I am kicking. And I highly appreciate all the support I've been getting. Gracias, man. Thank you guys so much for, tuning in and turning up, because that's what we do right here on Gunners Collective TV. So trip out. I wanted to talk about a question that was asked by a subscriber. He said, who has it the worst in prison? Is it the blacks? The brothers have it bad, man. Don't get it twisted. The Woods, the whites, brother. The whites go through the motion too. Or is it the essays, the Mexicans, he said. Is it the Mexicanos, the raza that has it bad? And I can tell you first and foremost, man, coming from a Mexican perspective, a Chicano perspective, the raza definitely has it bad. And I'm going to break it down into North, South, and Bulldogs, because these are the predominant groups in the California Department of Corrections in the system, right? Who has it the worst, man? Who truly has it bad, and why do they have it bad? I'm going to tell you why right now. So the Bulldogs definitely have it bad, man. Imagine being from a gang, a neighborhood, an organization or a group that is hated by everybody. I mean, these guys, anywhere they go, they have to keep their shit on swivel. They have to keep their head adjusted as such, right? Because if they're not prepared for what's coming, it's going to come fast. And the Bulldogs have an extensive history. They have a history of once being Norteños. So automatically, because they broke off from the Northern organization, from the Norteños, that's become a lifelong enemy. That's become to the point now where these younger Bulldogs don't know their history. Not a lot of them. Some do. Some know the F-14 history, and some don't care. They just see Norteños as the opposition, man, the threat. So, they have to be willing and ready at all times to take flight, or to realize, man, that people are going to get at them. When it comes to the Sureños, the Southsiders, the Bulldogs have had a lot of conflict with Southsiders, and it's come to a point now where everybody is against them. When this end of hostilities was formed, and North and South set aside differences and progress, continue to program on the yard, because they were already programming on some yards. I programmed with Southsiders on yards and function. It's a lot more different than it was back then. Back then, it was just a little respectful. Buenos dias, buenas noches. That was pretty much was it. Now it's more association, more kicking back, doing their thing. There's an avenue and a door open now to kick it. Before there wasn't. But the Bulldogs, they've had a tumultuous relationship as far as the Southsiders. I remember at one point when there was actually a red light put on the Bulldogs by the Southsiders. So they weren't necessarily allies, but they had the same common enemy, which were the Norteños. So at the same time, they allowed the Bulldogs to function on yards with them, and the Bulldogs allowed, themselves to be on yards, because it ain't about one group allowing another group. People are going to do what the fuck they want to do. Nobody are punks. When it comes to the raza, everybody is down to get down. Everybody's about their business. It just depends on what your business entails, what you're doing it for, where your allegiance stands. So with the Bulldogs, they definitely have it bad, man, because not only are they hated by Northerners and Southerners, but they're also, sometimes hated by blacks. They get into it with the brothers, man. They get into it with the whites. Of course, the whites, doing their own thing and playing them racial lines, can feel some type of way about the Bulldogs. So the Bulldogs are basically relegated to going to certain yards. They're kept segregated. Now, there have been some incidences where Bulldogs have went. They tried to mix and match. They tried to put them on yards with Norteños and Sureños, and that didn't work out quite well for anybody. The Bulldogs got taken off on, or they took off, first. Whatever the case may be, there's always going to be cheerleaders and fuckboys and fan people that are always going to be going for one group or another. And there's always going to be those that like to gangbang on the internet or gangbang in life and say, oh, them Vatos ain't about nothing, or they're stuck to Fresno and they can't go anywhere. And I'm here to tell you, man, the Bulldogs are with the business and they've been everywhere, man. But it must be definitely hard being a Fresno Bulldog functioning in the California Department of Corrections. Now, when it comes to the Sureños, the Southsiders, I think it's very hard being a Southsider. I've never been one, just like I've never been a Bulldog. But I could tell you I got a lot of primos that are. I got a lot of family that have swayed that way and went that way. And their allegiance is to the southern side, not the other side. And I could tell you one thing about the Southsiders is, them being the deepest group in and out of prison, you might think that they have it their way. that it's easy to function as a Southsider, but that's furthest from the truth. It's actually hard. And the reason it's hard is when you're a deep group, man, shit doesn't get watered down, but what it does is people become complacent and comfortable. And they believe because they have the numbers that they have the power, man. And other groups may look at that as a weakness. Other groups may say, hey, if something, I remember this was an old saying that we used to say, and it's wrong, but we used to say this was, hey, there's 100 of them Vatos and 30 of us. 30 of us are going to rock. Out of that 100, only 50 are going to rock. So it's even Steven, But that's not the truth. Every man is an individual. Every man represents what he represents, and every man can go from start to finish. That's a fact. I think the hardships being a Southsider is behind the walls is a lot of the inner fighting and the politics. It seems like everything I've heard, every story of every Sureño that I've ever talked to, man, the politics play heavy into their game. And, they can get fucked off. They could get mixed up just because they're functioning under someone who goes in bad standings. So I've heard situations where, maybe the Vatos are functioning up under, one Vato. And that's not their, I won't say shot caller, but that's pretty much, the guy that's dictating the program for them. And he does something that fucks off his career. He does something that, doesn't, it's not seen as a correct move. Well, pretty much all them Vatos that were functioning up under him, his whole fucking, group, they could get in bad standings. They can get whacked. They could become obsolete to the group. And that's just based on, it's a victim of circumstances. I seen a situation where there's a lot of Southsiders on the yard from a certain area, and I remember in YA, man, there was ranflas, right? For those of you that don't know what a ranfla is, it's a car. We called them cars, right? And your ranfla was your gente that you stuck with. Now, there was different area codes, and a lot of people like to play the area code bullshit. There was the 805, which was deep. At that time was Bakersfield, Santa Maria, Santa Bruta, Lompoc, all these different areas were the 805 car. And then you had the SGV, and then the West LA, the Harbor area, Southeast LA, Sela, Nella. You have, South Central. And, there was sometimes where your car would be your area. You were more familiar with the people from your groups, from your car. But then there was ranflas that were a mix and match. Vatos from the Harbor area, Vatos from West LA, Vatos from South Los, Vatos from Bakersfield, just depending on if they were camaradas, they were homeboys, they were taitas, they'd have a ranflas. And I noticed that a lot of those cars, the ones that were the mix and match cars, were the ones really about the business, the ones really putting in that work. And that's just the way it was. And then it went down to gangs, Florencia having a heavy presence when I was in the youth authority, as well as prison, even 18th Street, they had nice cars, Pomona 12th Street, Sharkies, White Fence. These different gangs came together because they were homeboys from the calles, or they were, from different clicas of that big gang. So they stuck together because they had a fucking common understanding of what it was to be from a certain barrio, and they believed in their barrio first and foremost. So being a Southsider, it is a hardship. It is a hardship behind them walls. Because they have the largest presence, because they're the biggest numbers, the administration watches them very closely. They already got a bad name when it comes to the cops. The cops already feel like they're the most dangerous and treacherous group. So if you get to a fucking prison being a Sureño, man, you're automatically going to be watched. You're automatically going to be labeled as, part of a fucking group or an organization. And there's a lot of guys that come from the calles that are just from a barrio, man, and they get locked up and they don't understand the politics and they have to get with the program. And there's a lot of hatred and envy and inner fighting when it comes to the Southsiders because they're so deep. Everybody wants to be the man. Everybody wants to be up under that one that's really running the shit. So I've noticed from the outside looking in, to be a Southsider, is a very hard thing. And I know there's going to be people say, well, to be a Sureño is the hardest thing to be in prison. And you know what? There is a lot of hate, a lot of envy that goes into the bullshit. A lot of people that will cancel you out. A lot of fucking backstabbing. That happens in every group. But, when you're the deepest group, it seems like there's a lot more. So you definitely would be hard being a Southsider, especially when you have, a lot of enemies that you have to set shit to the side, man. You could have a Vato from a barrio that you've beefed with for 20 fucking years. He's killed a lot of your homeboys. You've dusted some of his. Maybe he hit your primo, you hit his. You're boning his sister, whatever the case may be. And now you have to sweep all that shit to the side because none of that matters when you're incarcerated. What matters is the greater good of the cause, your people, right? And that must be hard to deal with. There's a lot of times I've seen vatos like, be on the yard with guys that were actually, they did a crime against. And it could get ugly, man. It could get ugly in a situation where you have to let them personal feelings go, because, you can get in a wreck. I've seen a lot of Southsiders, man, get removed, or a lot get put in pressure situations, just because of the area they were from, or because, they got there, thinking that, everything was good, and it just wasn't, man. It all depends on the yards that you get to in prison, and who's running them yards, and who's, gonna cancel you out, because maybe they don't like vatos from your area. Maybe they don't like your gang home, so they might do selective politicking on you. It happens, man. And when you are the deepest car in prison, it's gonna happen a lot more. So yes, it's definitely hard being a Sureño. I've heard of all the treachery and the backstabbing. And I can't sit here and say that I've been a part of that, because I haven't. But from everything I've been told, it's definitely a hard thing. And then you also have, vatos that are Sureños from upstate. You have that upstater car and the Southsider car. And back in my days in YA, there was not a beef, but there was, I guess you could call it selective politicking. There was a lot of vatos that were from the Sur, from the South, from the LA area, San Bernardino, IE, whatever, that used to feel some type of way about vatos from San Jose that were claiming Sur or Salas or whatever, San Francisco, Sacramento. Now you have to understand, it didn't mean that these vatos were watered down from up north and that they weren't about the shit, because they were definitely with the business. But a lot of the Sureños from down south thought that these vatos were 13 and a half. That was a label they used to throw out there. They thought they were Sureños from up norte, that weren't really, you were really claiming something that you weren't from. Eventually, over time, a lot of them vatos gained their respect, Holmes. And a lot of them vatos were looked at as real righteous vatos, because they were. Every person, man, like I said, can get it, or any person can't. So it's definitely hard being a Southsider. Now, when it comes to the Norteños, the wind starts to blow. I can speak from personal experience. Some of the situations that I've been through, some of the aggravation and the hardships and the struggle, man. When Norteños say forever forward, be about that struggle. The struggle is definitely real. When you're probably the most the minority group incarcerated in prison, there's not a lot of Norteños. I've been to several yards where there's 10, maybe 15 Norteños and 80 Southsiders to 200 Southsiders. I've been on yards where there's 2 or 3 homeboys. You have to establish. You have to plant your flag. You have to represent. You can't keep your shirt on. That's it. You have to put your shirt off and let everybody know where you're from. And that's a hardship. That's a hardship, because the dominant group and the bigger and the larger group is going to feel some type of way, because they figure, hey, these vatos pose no threat. There's only 2 or 3 or 4 of them. We can get on their fucking head like that. So it is what it is. And with the Sureños, they're able to send waves where it doesn't even affect their COC. It doesn't affect their chain of command or what they got going on their mess-up, because they're able to send hitters and shooters right at people. It's definitely a sucky situation. We could just do it like that, because I've been, all the way from a youngster, from knee high to, getting a little bit bigger, from YA. At first I went to a NRCC, Dorm 1 NRCC, youngster. We were the dominant group. There was 50 of us Norteños, maybe 10 Southsiders, some Bulldogs, which were Norteños at the time. So I thought we had it going on, Holmes. It was all canalismo and love. And I wasn't aware that there was other places yet where we were outnumbered. I'd come from my juvenile hall, being all homeboys, going to, a reception where it's all homies. I thought, shit, this is how it's going to be the whole time. Nothing but Norteños. They sent me down the road. That's it. Now I end up in LA, in Whittier, and I find out how Whittier Boulevard cruises, right? And there definitely we were very minimal. There wasn't a lot of us. Now we had to stand our ground and stand strong for our beliefs. It's just the way it was, right? But it was hard, man. Some of the things we went through, I don't wish on my worst enemies. Being separated from your family as a youngster, not getting visitas, money situation, funny situations, being there where everyone doesn't like you, where people don't want you there, including the blacks and the whites, because they feel like because of the Norteño presence, there was a lot of riots and a lot of melees and a lot of bullshit that went on. And everybody was subject to getting slammed down to the freeze. Everybody got disciplined because of one man's actions. That's how the youth authority was. If one group kicked it off, they'll slam everybody down. So a lot of the blacks started to feel a certain way. Hey, if these Norteños weren't here, like we asked to go there, right? Then maybe we wouldn't be having to go through this shit. Eventually, over time, they realized, hey, we had no fucking say-so over where they put us. They just ragdolled us and put us wherever they wanted. So those are some of the situations I went through as a youngster being a Norteño. That was a struggle. Then I moved on to prison, and I had the understanding now as an adult that we were not the deepest group. We were the minority in prison, and it's hard to be that. Because like I said, people will feel a certain type of way about you because they're deeper. That's it, you know. Norteños are a very structured group, very militant in the mindset of we're only as strong as our weakest link. We had to prove ourselves more so than any other group, I felt, within our own, because it was only the strong survived. There was no wiggle room for bullshit. You know, you hear about people getting removed and whacked, and you always wonder why there's more Norteño dropouts than anyone. And that's a myth, man. You just, there is a lot of Norteño dropouts, and the reason being, man, it was hard. It was hard. Some of these rules and regulations in the politics, man, the Norteños have no wiggle room for fucking bullshit. There's no, you're not going to see a lot of Norteños getting DP'd, you know, over and over again. That's not the way it works. You know, if you go in there and you do something and you go against the grain, homes, and you do something that's not asked of you, and you don't program or function to the highest degree with professionalism and class, homes, and the way that the homie wants it to be, well, then you're fucking obsolete. You're just a disruptive motherfucker to the cause. And you can go. Rather than embracing the homeboys and canalismo and trying to show them and guide them, there's a lot of vatos that are no-nonsense individuals. A lot of lifers in prison that have no room. They'd rather do it on their own and do it like a real motherfucker than trying to do it, you know, really with a real fake motherfucker. That's just how it is. So, you know, the struggle's been real as a Norteño. You know, again, you know, you got a lot of enemies. You know, your enemies with the whites, your enemies with the South, your enemies with the Bulldogs, man. So you got to keep your head on swivel. And every group has their enemies. Nobody likes nobody. Now with this end of hostilities, it's a little bit more kosher and comfortable, like a dill pickle. But prior to that, it was ugly. I can only speak prior because my time incarcerated was prior. You know, I've been in institutions where it was on site. Anytime we seen a Southsider or a Bulldog, get off. And they'll do the same thing with us. So if it wasn't a homeboy, you didn't know. I couldn't tell the difference back then. There's a lot of vatos that say, oh, well, there's a difference between North and South. The only difference is geography, you know, and how some people carry themselves. But at the end of the day, I can only wonder how it's becoming now. Because now, you know, back in our days, I ain't gonna lie, there was a lot of Norteños from the Bay Area that used the N-word. A lot of them said blood. A lot of them said cuz. A lot of them said rogue. A lot of them said cutty. That was just the style and the urban influence of where they grew up. You know, and that became a common thing known as Norteños were mayateros, what people used to say. Norteños acted black. I never thought we acted black. I thought we acted accordingly, right? We acted the way we acted, and that was it. There is no way to act black. I've said that so many times because I don't believe acting is a certain way. Homes, you either are or you fucking ain't. That's it, period. And ain't a word. So get that. But that was a label that was associated with the Norteños. But nowadays you have guys from down south and Bulldogs and everyone's saying the N-word and these youngsters all getting the same haircuts. You can't fucking tell the difference. To me, it's hard. The Stilo, the Ben Davises, the Cortezes, the Dickies, the motherfucking hats, all that shit is going to the wayside. Our culture is being watered down by a different type of influence of a different culture. Now, I don't see nothing wrong with showing love and respect, and every culture is beautiful, but at the same time, you know, don't never forget the food stamps, the hard cheese, and the motherfucking penny candies you come from. Always remember where you are from. Always remember who you are, inside and out. And that's what it is. So Norteños definitely have it hard in prison. You know, as a group, North, South, Bulldogs, and any other Mexican paisas, of course, man, shout out respects to the paisanos, my people, my gente, you know, the people that we're derived from as Chicanos, they have hardships too. You know, they have a language barrier, a lot of them. You know, a lot of them are looked at as victims. They can be easily victimized in the system because people don't understand them and people think they're not with that shit, but they are definitely with that shit. They're definitely just like anyone else, even more so in some circumstances. Best believe it. And you best believe this. The brothers are strong. The paisas the deepest, right? There's a lot of paisas, man. And especially in federal prison system, you know, in the state, not as much, but they're there and their presence is felt. So to be totally honest, man, you know, every group has hardships. Every group, I mean, you're in prison. Prison is not meant to be happy. It's not meant to be a fucking hooping situation every day and smiling like Wes Watson. It's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be a hardship and a struggle you go through so you don't want to go back, so that you get a different mentality and you change your ways. You know, that's what I try to throw out there. Not to to distance anyone from their gang or to stop anyone from gangbang. That's your business. I'm just trying to tell you the way it was and the way it is. And prison is not fun. You know, you go in there with a positive attitude, you're going to positively get whacked. You go in there with a negative attitude, well, guess what? Some motherfucker might be positive that day. You go in there with a nonchalant attitude where you're going to see what chalant really means. It doesn't matter. The best thing to do is just to go in there and be yourself and let the cards fall where they lay. And that's it. So I honestly, not because I'm Mexican, I come from Mexican descent, do I believe that Mexicans have it the roughest and the toughest in prison. But I best believe that I honestly believe, man, there's a lot of struggle within the Mexican cars, depending upon where you're from. And depending upon what institution, man, there's some places where, you know, the Sureños are so deep and you're a Southsider and it's comfortable, homes. You just do your thing, you do your program. Same thing with the Norteños. You hit a good yard, it's a northern yard. It's all love, canalismo, the homies, you know. Bulldogs, they have their yards, Wasco, and then they have, you know, certain yards that they're on now, where it's all good in the hood for them. But, you know, it definitely is a situation where Mexicans are, you know, we expect a lot from ourselves. There's a very prideful people, you know, and not to say that the brothers, man, and that the whites don't go through their shit, because they definitely do. So, I mean, it's all perspective. Every different person is going to say their group probably has it the hardest. At the end of the day, men have it hard in prison, because prison is meant to break you, desensitize you, and you're meant to not be there. See, we are not, as normal human beings, meant to be caged, you know. But if you cage your mind and you don't expand your mind, well, then you're going to find your body encompassed in that same cage as well. And then it's going to be hardships for everyone. They got enough for everyone, and that ain't money, homes. With that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. I hope that you enjoyed this video. It's just some real shit. You know, someone asked me a question. There was the answer. So with that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. Get everything that you want coming. And remember, at the end of the day, show! It's all about the strive, the struggle, the strive. And my love and respect is for everybody. Doesn't matter what you are, man. You know, about the God at me the other day, you're talking a lot about biker business, man. You're talking about bikers. Well, you know what? Because bikers are people just like we're people, man. And they deserve the respect. I always put respect on their name. I have no ill will or ill intentions on anybody's name, man. It's always been about respect with minds. That's the key to life. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, try to show it, man. Fake it till you make it. You know what it is. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I honestly and truly believe in. And that's the betterment of everyone, man. Thank you. Bang, bang. Real game right there.